René, man, it's good to finally have you on the show.
It's great to be here, my friend. Truly, truly, truly excited for this conversation.
Yeah, you've been so supportive of, me and the Miracle Morning, the launch of the book. And I know we last saw each other, I think in person was Vegas at Momentum Builder, right?
Yeah, it was in Vegas. You had just got off stage, and we had sort of met in the trade show area, and I had like 6 people to be like, "You got to meet Hal. You got to meet Hal." And of course, every one of them said he's a really good friend of mine, as we talked about before. And you were extremely gracious, and your book has been revolutionary for me because it made me rethink old things that I sort of dismissed, like affirmation and routine. And so our initial conversation made me rethink all of it.
Similarly, your book, one of the most influential books that I had read in my lifetime was Influence by Robert Cialdini. And then when I read Amplify Your Influence, when I read your book, it was like, oh, this is, everything Cialdini, and like it's the new, updated, improved, version of that for the modern day. So yeah, dude.
Thank you. That's a big compliment.
Yeah, the appreciation is mutual. And I'll tell you, similarly, Isaac Tolpin had told me about you for, I don't even know how long, a year, maybe more. You have René Rodriguez. He's one of the best speakers I've ever seen. You have to meet René Rodriguez. And, probably took like a year, but yeah, we finally crossed paths. I'm like, I know who you are. Isaac Tolpin. Yeah. We know each other.
Tolpin or Stegman? Isaac Stegman.
Oh, Stegman. My bad.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you for clarifying that.
No, that's okay. He raves about you as well. He's such a good dude.
Yeah, he's been one of the biggest supporters of the Miracle Morning from 2012 when the first book came out. I think he bought 100 copies, gave it to 100 real estate leaders, and it just from there it was like, I think he literally created a Miracle Morning movement in the real estate community single-handedly by his effort, man. So yeah, he's a good human. So I mentioned to you before we started recording that when I send out surveys, which I do usually, 2-3 times a year to the Miracle Morning community, to my listeners, and I always ask, what do you need help with right now? And sometimes I phrase it, what are you struggling with, or what do you need help with? And the top 3 answers consistently are mindset is usually number 1, my mindset, my mental health, etc. Number 2 is finances. I need help with money, making money. And number 3 is, and it always surprised me, but it's personal development. And I think I take that for granted, maybe because it's such a ingrained part of my life and my ritual and my schedule, right? That it's like, well, why would you need help with it? Like, you just do it, right? Just do your Miracle Morning. And so that's something that you and I were riffing on. And I really think that's the direction I want to take today's conversation. And so it also made me, realize that personal development is not something that the average person is ever introduced to in their lifetime.
Yeah.
You probably found that, people tell me like Miracle Morning is the first personal development book I ever read because a friend recommended it, and I was fortunate that at 19 years old, I started selling Cutco cutlery, and my mentor introduced me to the concept of personal development and positive thinking. And these were like totally foreign concepts. So I'd love to start there. Can you share your introduction to personal development, your journey into this field, and what inspired you to pursue it?
It's so funny you mentioned Cutco. I was 18 and got cut from the basketball team. And I asked the CEO, what's the one thing that I needed to do to be in their shoes when I got older? Because I didn't know what to do. He looked at me and he smiled and he said, you learn how to sell. If you learn how to sell, you'll always be employed. And so literally 2 weeks later, I get this letter in the mail said I've been selected because of my GPA to join this fast-paced sales and marketing company in the health and wellness industry. Well, I had a 2.3 GPA, so they somehow mixed it up, right? And I go, but hey,
is what makes a good salesperson.
Exactly.
That's
so
actually
I'm perfect.
Your avatar for a successful salesperson. Me too.
Yep. And so I was like, okay, well, that's their mistake, not mine. It said sales and marketing. I didn't really understand what that was at 18. Yeah. And, basically it was a mass recruiting to sell cookware door to door. And Cutco made our knives, but it was Salad Master. Okay. And the previous year, I had to get into college. I had to work in the probation program, which means I had to be a janitor for that first summer and, cleaning cigarette butts and toilets and all that stuff. But I realized that I'd never seen $918. And that's what I made that summer. It's more money I'd ever seen in my life. And I had to keep it all in ones, right? There's this big roll of ones. Smell it every once in a while, And they came out and this guy said that his first summer, this was in the introductory interview, that he made $9,000. That was another zero. everything that I felt about basketball disappeared after 15 years. And all I could see was this guy is like, what do I need to do? And I walked up to him and I said, I'll do what you say, when you say to do it, no questions asked. And he looks at me and goes, smiles and goes, okay, next. Anyways, they hired everybody. And I was the last guy to make a sale. And because my mom was out of town, she bought the sympathy set, right? It was like, buy your kids set.
Of course.
But, I had been rejected my entire life, whether it been bullying or whether it been through, being the overweight kid and basketball being cut, just all that stuff that they just said, do 10 presentations, you'll sell 3. But the reason I share that is that he gave me this cassette. And I'd always seen this thing in my mom's closet, this guy with these big, huge teeth, and it said personal power. I'm like, what is that?
Oh,
never,
wow.
Just saw it for years. Never knew what it was.
Yeah.
And this guy gave me this cassette. It had this guy named Zig Ziglar on it with this crazy Southern accent. And it talked about goal setting. And I put it in the cassette tape in my car. And I was like, God, his voice is hard to listen to. And 5 minutes into it, I get used to it. And I'm like, these are incredible ideas. Like I could set a goal and accomplish it. And I devoured it. I listened to it 5 times, gave it back to him. I go, do you have another one? And he goes, yeah, here's this guy, Jim Rohn. I'm like, nice. Okay, take charge of your life.
And how old were you? 18?
18.
Amen. All right.
Right. And I listened to Take Charge of Your Life, that series. I still have it to this day. I've probably listened to it 300 times minimum.
Wow.
And then he hands me this box set. I'm like, my mom has this. And it was Tony Robbins, Personal Power. Right. And that 30-day program where you listen to it's like 20 minutes a day. And he's making one minor change at a time. And it was genius. But it was like one of those things I was just hooked. Tony Robbins to Tom Hopkins to thing. But like as I got older, because I asked the same question, like why do we gravitate towards that? And whether you're in sales or whether you're in a stay-at-home parent, or whether you're in leadership or whether you're an author, whatever it is, life throws adversity at you. And if you're in a job that requires you to deal with any level of suffering, rejection, whatever it is, or if you have any level of ambition to grow in your career, the idea of personal development is amazing. It's like I can learn something. And it's interesting. And this is a new sort of concept that I came across was in this. And I'd love your take on this because it was the idea of money versus wealth. And a lot of people confuse wealth with money. Yeah. And money would be a quantitative sort of measure of it. I can measure the pile of it, how much I have net worth. But wealth is this qualitative thing of like, the best example would be I've got a beat up car. Okay. It's not worth much money, but I have a skill set of refurbishing and I refurbish that car. Now it's worth a lot more. And the cool part is I created more wealth, but no one lost money because I got wealthier. And so it wasn't a finite game. It wasn't a zero sum game. And so moving my thoughts to how do I build wealth? And the easiest way to build wealth is to stop thinking about money and think about value. And personal development is the way to refurbish we're the vehicle. We can increase our wealth through this personal development process. And no one loses, by the way. And in fact, everyone gains. The more valuable my friends are, the more value they offer me and vice versa. Yeah. So anyways, long answer to that, but I think that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think it, for me, introduced to personal development at 19 when I started selling Cutco, but don't think I fully understood the value of it until I heard Jim Rohn in 2007, 2008 say, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development. Oof. And to me, that's in every area, right? If you want a better marriage, become a better spouse, right? If you ask the average person that's getting a divorce, how many books did y'all read on how to be a phenomenal spouse and improve your communication and learn each other's love languages? And, and the average person getting a divorce would say, well, what are you talking about? None, zero. We didn't read any book, right? Well, what if you had increased your level of personal development as it relates to co-creating a thriving marriage? Might you end up with a different result? And you can apply personal development to your health, your happiness, your financial wealth, and in every area of life. And so for me, it's like, oh, that became not just an idea, but like the foundational idea which I shall build my life on, and not just success, like outer success, but inner fulfillment, you name it. This morning, I'm reading. I read my if I have any fault, I read too many books at once. Where like
I'm the same way.
Yeah. This morning I read Boundaries because I am terrible at saying no and creating boundaries, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings and disappoint my friend, whatever. So I'm terrible at setting boundaries. That's a challenge. Although I shouldn't be affirming it. I'm getting better at setting boundaries. And then I read Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World. I read a little bit of Power of Now. So I read 3 or 4 books this morning, and but the idea is I want to be a better parent. I'm committed to being a better parent. I'm committed to being a better, spouse. I'm committed to being happier, healthier, more connected to God. Oh, Lead Like Jesus is the other book that I'm reading right now, which is phenomenal. So yeah, and it's like, so my whole world revolves around or is centered on personal development. There's very little that's more important than that.
I'm writing down the Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World. That sounds like such a perfect topic. Yeah. And I think, what's interesting is the hardest part about personal development too, is that it can become cliched so quickly.
Yeah.
It can be something that we build a callus to because we hear about it and we hear motivation. And I was going to write an article that the motivational speaker killed good parenting. And they're like, why? I was like, well, because I think some of us that grew up without it, we started going to it. Maybe we just need to give our kids all the things we learn, and then we start desensitizing our kids to those new ideas. But then there's the thought that maybe what you said earlier, maybe it's that they're still listening. They just don't know how to respond, and we're still helping programming them. And so I think that I love what you said earlier, and I think you should re-say that because, sending your kids something, they don't respond. You're thinking, oh, it's deaf ears, but maybe they're processing it differently. And maybe they just need to hear that over and that narrative and that voice and that tape being played. But I love that story you shared.
Yeah. So, and it was, I owe it to a friend of mine, John Vroman, the founder of Front Row Dads, one of my best friends. And he and I are in a Front Row Dads, what's called a band. So there's 4 guys, and we get together once a month minimally. And then we communicate, via a text group where we're helping each other every day, sharing our highs, our lows, what we need help with, and all around parenting and family. So we rarely, if ever, talk about business. And John Vroman actually called me the other day, and it was probably a month ago. And he said, hey, I wanted to share a parenting win with you. And I think it'll be helpful because, he knows me really well and how I struggle with, connecting with my teenage daughter. It's a challenge. The older she gets, the more I'm like, it's not as easy to just read her a story at night. She doesn't want that anymore. So, and here's what he said. He said, I send meaningful text messages to my son. His son is 14, maybe 15 now, 14 years old, I think, 15. And his name is Tiger. And he said, I send meaningful messages to my son at least a few times a week. And he said, and he rarely, if ever, responds. And he said, and it's discouraging for me. I keep sending him and I'm attached to his response. And I think he's not responding. So he's not getting them. He's not reading them. They're not landing. And he said, and then he goes, let me read you a text message that I wrote. Then he read this, Tiger, the man you're becoming is amazing. And, I'm so proud of you. And he gave these specific examples. And he goes, you want to know what he said? I said, yeah. He said, nothing, not a like, not a heart, not a thumbs up, nothing. And then he said, let me read you the next one. He reads another beautiful text message a few days later, no response. And then he reads another one, no response. And then he says, Tiger came to me the other day and said, hey, Dad, I know I never respond to your text messages, but I want you to know I read every single one, and they really mean a lot to me. Thank you for sending them. And he said, I had no idea. I thought he was right. And he said, and I realized that it's about pouring into people and not being attached to their response, not being attached to the outcome. And I heard that. I was like, wow. And so since then, that was probably a month ago, at least a few days a week, if not almost every day, I text my daughter and my son something meaningful. Sometimes it's quick and short. I acknowledge them for something that I did. I catch them doing things right. I let them know how much I love them and appreciate them. And my daughter on my birthday, this was a month or so ago. We were at dinner and my wife said, hey, let's tell Dad what we love and appreciate about him. And she said, hey, Dad, 2 things. Number one is, you send me these text messages and I know I don't really, it was like the exact script that my friend John's son said. Right. But she said, number 2, how you come in the morning, you wake me every morning and I'm always grumpy and I tell you to get out of my room. And I said, yeah. She goes, well, you always are so positive, and you say something nice to me, and you ask if you can get me anything or do anything for me. And even though I'm grumpy, she's like, I want you to know it means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you doing that every morning. And it was like, so yeah, to your point and what you just said, right? Like, our kids may not respond, but it's landing. And so our job is to not keep score or be attached to their response. It's just to keep pouring in. And you can apply that to every relationship in your life.
Yeah. And I think there's that piece of one, not being attached to the outcome. But then I think the second piece is how do we continually just be that voice there? Somebody once said, be careful of yelling and screaming at your kids, because the voice that you use to your kids becomes the voice in their head as an adult.
Yes.
And I was like, oh man, so many things I wish I wouldn't have said. And then going, okay, what am I saying now? Right. I can't fix that, but I can go back, and I have gone back, and I told both my kids, I go, we need to normalize something. I go, what do you mean? I go, I know you want to be like dad, and there's a lot of things you want to be like dad. I go, but that's the easy part. Being like dad is going to be easy. The challenge is you're going to be just like dad, the good and the bad. And I go, what we need to normalize is let's figure out the bad stuff about dad, the stuff that I messed up on, the things you don't want to be anything like. I'm a lighthouse in certain areas. I'll guide you, but there's some areas of my life that are foghorns that you need to be warned by. And I go, and I want you to be okay saying and noticing, I don't want to be anything like you like this, dad. And I'm going to go high five my son. And I go, and that needs to be an okay conversation.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Creating that space for them to say stuff that they're afraid, they're afraid to criticize their parents. And actually it was similar. I saw my daughter, I just happened to peek over her shoulder at the airport the other day. We were coming back from California, and I saw her texting one of her friends about me, and it was not positive. And I couldn't help but read, because I see dad in the text message. I'm reading it. And so I talked to her about it, and I just said, hey, I want you to know. And at first I took it personally. I was kind of like, hey, I didn't know you felt that way about me. And so it started off as not a good win. I didn't handle it well at first. And she was upset. And then we went home, and I went in, I said, hey, I want you to know you did nothing wrong. You are absolutely allowed to vent to your friends about me. If you can't vent to your friends about your parents, who can you vent to, right? And I said, so I know that is absolutely okay. You did nothing wrong. And I said, but I also want you can tell me that stuff, like, if you want. Like, I want to know when I'm doing something that doesn't feel good for you, so that I can correct the behavior. And so, yeah, brother.
Absolutely.
Back to the topic of personal development. What does that look like for you? I always say personal development is a very vague phrase. Like, it's a very unspecified phrase. So, like, what are the key principles of personal development for you? Those that have made the biggest impact on your life. What's the ritual? What's the routine? Like, what does personal development, how do you integrate it and implement it in your life?
I'm glad you said that, because it is such a broad, vague topic. And people say, Renee, can you give me a book you recommend? And I'm like, I'm looking at 600 books just in one area of I'm like, well, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many. I mean, is it financial? Is it relationship? Is it spiritual? Is it health? Is it career? Is it presentation? Is it rejection? I mean, I can go on and on. There's an endless topic of those. And so I think that, for me, and I've been reading a lot of, and it's funny, I read a lot of these books when I was in college, Eastern philosophy, the yogis, autobiography of yogi. And then recently I was given another book by someone that came to one of my courses, who was a monk, former monk. And that is a story that I should share at some point. But
it wasn't Jay Shetty, was it? Sorry, keep going.
No. Yeah, no. Bottom line of the story was, this kid came up to me after I spoke at an event in New York, and he had this sort of soft smile, sort of loving, beautiful energy to him. And he said, Renee, I was very moved by what you said, and I want you to mentor me, and I want you to be in one of your classes. I said, great. What's still holding you back? He goes, well, I haven't had a bank account in 8 years. He goes, I'm a monk. I live in a monastery. He's wearing a suit. And I'm like, oh my God. I go, that's fantastic. He goes, but I'll get there. I just started real estate, and you'll see me. And I go, no need to wait. Let's just go. Why don't you give me a call? And connected him with my wife. And, we're assuming that, I'll just give him a discount or figure out how to get him in, put him on payment, whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And, it's a $6,000 investment to come to this course. And he sends us a message that says, thank you so much. Looking forward to it. I just got 2 leads in my real estate. I'll let you know how they go. 3 weeks later, I just signed them under contract, and to celebrate, I'm sending you a case of sparkling water because I saw on one of your podcasts that was good for the brain. Sends us a case of sparkling water and goes back. And then he comes back probably 2 months later. He said, I closed my first deal and I got $750 to celebrate. I'm sending you $500 put towards my bill. And I'm like, nice. To my wife, I'm like, well, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we should just let him in. She's like, nope, just let him keep doing his thing. And 2 months later, he sends us another 500. And I finally just call him and I said, book your time. We'll figure out the money later. Anyways, he comes, he's there always 45 minutes early. He's sitting in my living room and he's just quiet. And he pulls out his book and he just starts reading. He's got this sort of peace to him. Okay, this guy spent most of his time in silence. So he's very comfortable in that position. And he gives me this book called The 4 Questions. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And decided one night to start reading it. And oh my God, like just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Bottom line, at the end, he goes to the course. We hand him $1,500 back. We said, look, this is for your travel and the course. The book you gave me has completely changed my life. And it was a perfect timing. It was this really cool thing. But the questions were so simple. And then he literally, this just showed up in the mail. Look at this. You can see this. Like, I told him it changed my life, and he sent me all these now.
Oh wow!
So, and these are a little bit deeper than I'm ready for, but maybe it's exactly what I need. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think to answer your question is and you said it, and I'm always very cautious because I wrote in my book that the answers to life are found in cliches. And why? Because at the first time they were said, they weren't cliche; they were profound.
That's profound. I love that.
Yeah. And cliches were in essence the first viral content. I said something really good and someone goes, man, that explains a lot. Let me tell. And then they tell somebody and they tell somebody and they tell 5, 10, 20, and it just goes viral.
Yeah.
And then it loses its luster because we build a callus to it.
Yeah.
And so part of the communication process we teach is called qualify the cliche. We have to change the pathway because if it's lost its luster, that means that we've desensitized or we've habituated to the idea. It's like driving home. You don't know you're driving. I've done this path so many times, so it doesn't take any mental energy to process, release the attachment to the outcome, right? It just goes in one. I've heard that before. Okay, keep going. What's next?
Yeah.
No, like actually release it. What happens? And so affirmation, same thing happened. Like affirmation is so cliched, but then when you and I talked, I go, help me understand this. And you said, no, René, affirm the behaviors it takes to reach the goal, not the goal as if you magically have it. And I was like, oh, he qualified it and he just gave a totally different spin, which new pathway. And I'm like, that shifted so much of my 30 years of understanding of that because you took a spin, it changed it a little bit. And so I think when it comes to personal development, we know the answers. We've heard them. They are in the things that we dismiss. Like, girls will tell me, hey, where are the good guys out there? I go, I know exactly where they are. They're in the friend zone where you put them. Right? Like where's the good wisdom? It's in the cliche pile that you left it. And go back and revisit. And if you're a speaker, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, I invite you to say something ahead of the cliche. Even it's as simple as saying, I know this sounds cliche, but this. And if you just do that, just kind of triggers it. Okay, at least I know that. And then you follow it. But this is what this means to me. And then you give your spin, your twist, and then maybe I'll hear it differently because your twist on affirmations changed everything for me.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think I said this in Miracle Morning, but I know, and I think I learned this from a friend or a mentor, but it was that 4 of the most dangerous words in the English language are "I already know that." Right. And what does that mean? It means that you heard something cliche, right? Over and over and over again. And I say, replace those 4 words with 4 words that are a question. Am I living that?
Yes.
Right. And it's usually no. And like you said, because if we've heard it over and over and over, we dismiss it. But God, I love it. Go back. What did you say? The wisdom and the cliches. What was that quote from your book?
So the answers to life are found in cliches.
The answers to life are found in the cliches. Yeah, it's so true, right? You can go back to
like, there's no
biblical
new
wisdom, right? Or be even before that.
Yeah, there's no new fundamental. You look at everything Tony Robbins says. I can find it all in Jim Rohn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
That's
you
right.
look at Jim Rohn, you can find most of that in some parable in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form in there. And it's these things are not new, and which is
Yeah.
okay. It's like going to the personal trainer and saying, I want to lose weight. He's going to say two things. I want to see a log of what you're eating, and I want to see a log of your exercise. And you
Yeah.
go, okay, no, I want something new and fresh. I've
Yeah.
done that
Yeah.
before.
That's it. That's
It's like,
it.
there is no new and fresh to the
Yeah.
fundamentals.
Yeah.
And
No,
the
I'm gonna
same
go
is true.
on. I'm gonna stay up till 2 a.m. binge eating and watch an infomercial, and then I'm gonna get the new diet thing that is fast and
Yeah.
easy, and I only have to
6-minute
take
abs.
1 pill per day. Yeah, that's it.
That's all I got to do.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it's interesting too, and that's the caution too for personal development is, and this is where I think it's gotten a bad rap, is there's a concept called aspirational appeal. It's part of the marketing manipulator category. So marketing manipulators are things like lowering price to get a deal, 2 for 1, peer pressure, 5 out of 10 doctors recommend. Those are our marketing manipulators. But the other one is aspirational appeal, which to me is one of the most unethical. And a lot of people in personal development space, the new guru space, fall into that. They make promises to, for example, 6-minute abs, 30 days to financial freedom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim, 4-hour work week, right? So the aspiration is, hold on a second. So I ask a personal trainer or somebody who's got six pack, would you ever buy 6-minute abs? And they go, no.
Yeah.
I ask a millionaire, would you do 30 days financial freedom? They go, no. I go, why? They go, because it's not done in 6 minutes. It's done in the kitchen over years, and wealth is built through years.
Yeah.
But so who does it appeal to? Well, aspirational appeal appeals to the insecure of the one who's insecure about doing the behavior it takes to get the abs. And so if I have an insecurity or a fear that I can't do that, but I can do 6 minutes. And so it appeals to that aspirational side of us. And then we make an impulsive decision to do it. And of course, there's so much more to it. And so when we look at that, you say, okay, so then why do the people who sell to the masses always sound aspirational? Well, are the masses secure or more insecure? What would you say that is? The world would be insecure easily.
Yeah.
And so it appeals to the mass. And so people make millions and millions and millions on this. And so the only caution is to, it's just like clickbait. It's the things that trigger that first piece of attention, and ask yourself, is there really a shortcut to things that take a long-term success? And I can't think of any successful thing that is shortcut, because part of the value is the time and effort and suffering that it goes into creating it. Remove time, effort, suffering, there's no value, because then everybody can get it.
Yeah. 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 No, that's very well said. I love the, cliche, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. I don't know who first said that, but I've lived it, right? And I've repeated it. And we hear about somebody, we see somebody, I think it was actually, who was it that said that? There was some famous person on like the Ellen DeGeneres show, decades ago. And they go, you're an overnight success. Yesterday, nobody knew who you are. Now you have the #1 movie in the country. And that person said, overnight success, my butt. I've been at this game. I've been in Hollywood for 10 years. I've been working in kitchens and sleeping in my car. And I finally, all that years of hard work, a decade of hard work paid off. And I was sharing that in a podcast I was doing with Mike Koenigs. And he said, it was a beautiful response. He said, Hal, that begs the question, what are you willing to commit 10 years to so that you can become an overnight success?
Yeah.
Right. What do you believe in enough? What do you believe in enough? What do you love doing enough? Where do you see your value that you're willing to commit 10 years to that? I'm reading a book right now called Lead Like Jesus. And it's phenomenal. It's by Ken Blanchard, author of 1 Minute Manager. And it makes a really empowering case. It says, leaders, a good leader is someone that is still a leader even when they're not in your presence, right? Meaning that the people that follow that leader or learn from that leader are still doing the things that leader taught or suggested, even when the leader's not around. And he said, there's no other leader on the planet that has 2.1 billion people still following their influence. And I was like, dang, that's empowering. So So I just started reading the book, and I want to ask you, because your expertise, is in influence. Your book, Amplify Your Influence. Your expertise is in leadership, which influence and leadership are very much thought to go hand in hand. And so here's what I want to ask you. So let me start with this. The quote in the book that I wrote down is, leadership happens anytime we influence the thinking, behavior, or development of another person. So a parent is a leader, a friend is a leader, a son is a leader, a daughter is a leader, right? Anytime one human being influences the thinking, behavior, development of another human being, right? So from your perspective, how do leadership skills intersect with personal development?
It's so ironic you brought up Ken Blanchard. I interviewed him in 2006.
Wow.
And I asked him the difference between a leader and a manager. And he said, a leader is anybody who influences someone. Same thing you just said. And that was one of my first, and I'd already been involved in influence training from a speaking perspective, because I interchange speaking and leadership and influence synonymous. Like John Maxwell says that the only measure of leadership is influence, no more, no less. And it's the only thing that measures influence or leadership. But when Blanchard said that everyone's a leader, if you're influencing somebody, it's like, yeah, we're all there. So it kind of puts us all there. But I love this is that also a nice difference between leader and manager is the leader's impact is felt even when they're not around. A manager has to be around.
They got to be managing.
Yeah, they're managing, but the manager goes away, the mice will play, kind of thing. And so that the leader, they're haunting you in there. And so you trigger me so much on that. I want you to repeat your question, because I want to make sure that I answered it correctly, because you got me thinking about Ken, and I wanted to say that. I apologize. Could you answer that question?
So I wanted to know from your perspective how leadership skills intersect with personal development, and why is it important for leaders, which in this context, all of us, to focus on, on their own growth.
So I love that question, because think about it. People think I think people also misunderstand what leadership truly is, or influence is about. So I take a very philosophical approach. Let's remove influence from your life and let's take a look at it. You walk in a room and no one notices. You tell a joke, no one laughs. You sell a product, no one buys. You share an idea, no one cares. You cast a vision, no one follows. How are you feeling?
Feeling helpless.
Helpless, right? Some people say invisible. The word I use is insignificant. I don't know if any smaller word, by the way. I try to come up with a smaller word. Hated is bigger than insignificant.
Yeah.
There's no impact with insignificance. And so if I was in a meeting and I felt insignificant, I'd probably ask myself, why am I in this meeting? If I was in a relationship and I felt insignificant, I'd probably ask myself, why am I in this relationship? If I was at work and I felt insignificant, I'd say, why do I work here? Unfortunately, far too many people walk around life feeling insignificant, asking themselves, why am I here? So the answer to that, let's try adding influence back. You walk in a room, people notice. You tell a joke, people laugh. You sell the product, people buy. You share an idea, people love it. You cast a vision and you watch people mobilize and take action. How do you feel now?
Powerful.
Empowered. I might say significant. Because why? I do something and the world responds. So I have impact. And so there's a sense that I can affect change in the world. And so if I'm in a meeting and I feel significant, I know exactly why I'm there. If I'm in a relationship and I feel significant, I know exactly why I'm there. If I'm at work and I feel significant, I know exactly why I'm there. If I walk around life feeling significant, I know why I'm here. So to me, influence, so much more than sales and marketing. It is truly about your fingerprint in the world, the impact, the legacy, the mark that you leave on this planet. And so when you want to empower people, personal development is around controlling your environment. And so you can't have personal development without influencing your surroundings, your mindset, your thought process, who you spend time with, the behaviors of those around you. Setting a boundary. Are you able to influence people to listen to the boundaries? Like you said, is it asking for a raise? Are you able to negotiate that and be a little less agreeable in that moment of truth? And so influence appeal and hits so many different areas. And I tell people when they go through my course, at the end, they realize, like, why do I have lighthouses all around? That stories that we teach them to tell that create the influence, the stories show up for people when maybe the person couldn't. I can tell you stories that I told my kids that showed up for my kids. One might have saved his life. That, thank God I told him that story, because it showed up when I couldn't be there that night. and he remembered it, and it got him to make a different decision. And so the word influence, personal development, all of these things are so interlaced and interconnected. And I think that's why Miracle Morning is so powerful, because it gave me a tangible touch to my life to impact. It showed me some levers that I can move to see impact. I didn't feel like I had any control of my life. Wait, hold on. I'm going to do this. Oh, hold on a second. And you laid it out so simply in the morning, first thing. So I'd start this trajectory of my life this way. And you wonder why millions of people wanted it, because you gave me a way to impact my life to become more significant, therefore know my purpose. It's pretty profound.
That's a profound perspective. And insignificance, right? Well, significance, one of the 6 human needs, fundamental, foundational human needs, right? And if we don't have it, we feel incomplete. I think that how many people take their own life because they feel insignificant. And the way that you framed it on, if you feel insignificant in your work, why are you here? What's your purpose in your marriage? What's your purpose? Why, as a parent, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's so important. And I think that when I read your book, Amplify Your Influence, it was realizing the context is not this, I thought, oh, this is a business book. And then I was like, oh no, this is a personal development book, right? Like this is a personal development book. This is about you becoming influential.
Don't tell people that. That's my secret.
So that you can influence your kids and your spouse and and people at work. And if you are in sales, right? I mean, that's, absolutely crucial. What do you see as the future of personal development? Any peek into the future and how individuals can stay ahead in their journey of growth, self-improvement, personal development, influence, all of the above?
Well, back in the day, we had to go purchase a cassette, find a player to play that. Now we have phones and YouTube that literally any question we want to answer, there is an answer at the fingertips. So really the limit is to your own creativity. What I've come to find out that one of my best personal development coaches is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And, I'll say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Can you act as my coach in this arena? And it'll say, sure. I go, but I want you to ask me, any amount of questions that you need to really understand what I'm trying to solve before you give me advice. And this is very important to me. And I'll say the stress the importance of it.
Wow.
That does something to the algorithm or whatever it is that it does to really dig a little deeper instead of just do the surface piece. And it'll dig deeper on questions. And it is so profound to find that, and I believe that the answers have already exist. I just need to figure out the right question. And if I can ask the right question, the right answers will be there. And so the questions are the answer in a lot of ways. By the way, that's an idea I've heard for years, but came out in the book, The 4 Questions. But it's if I can ask the right questions, I can really get an answer to anything I want. If I can ask the right questions of Hal Elrod, I can get answers I never thought. If I can get answers from, like imagine, like I want to upload the 30,000 documents my mother wrote. She died 2 years ago, and I want to upload that and create a bot and have conversations with my mom. How would she have thought about this?
Wow.
And getting creative around the future of it, we can create those things. And, I've trained ChatGPT to read every single thing that I've written, and I keep uploading it. And we're in the process of creating a bot where we can just ask me questions. And it's not to replace me or to, make $1 million on it. It's just to give another avenue for people to have a conversation around something. And maybe my philosophy or take on it might be the answer that they need because they asked the right question.
That's profound. I wasn't expecting that answer, but that makes sense that you went there, and that resonates as true. Hey man, we could talk all day. I know we both have other appointments. Where can people get your book, Amplify Your Influence? Where can they follow you, keep learning from you, René? Obviously, I think anyone that listened to this gets that you, A, that you care, B, that you are a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And so, where can people keep the journey going?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. It's Learn with René, RENE. And TikTok's the same way. YouTube's the same. Learn with René. My website is Meet René, MEET, René.com, RENE. And either one of those can find me there. Send me a message. We do a video a day. It's all micro learning based, nothing being sold. Then we also have an event coming up August 16th in Dallas, Texas called AmpCon, Amplify Conference. Love to have anybody there. Send us a message. And if you're listening to this, I would be happy to give you a discount to attend that. 50% if you want it, just because you know Hal Elrod and we want to help his community.
Awesome, brother. And the book is available Amazon, wherever books are sold.
Everywhere. Yep. Amazon.
Amplify
Yes, please go buy the book.
Renee, well, this was a long due conversation and it exceeded my expectations, man. So just thank you for who you are and how you show up for people. And I appreciate you.
Well, the honor is all mine, my friend. And you've impacted millions of lives. You've impacted me. And it's an honor to be a part of what you're doing. And like I said, anything that I'm doing, there's always a seat for you there, a conversation there, and truly enjoyed today. Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first of many conversations to come, brother. So, goal achievers, thanks for listening today. You know, I love you. I appreciate you. Go check out René Rodriguez. Follow him on social media at Learn with René or Learn with René. Learn with René, R-E-N-E, and check out the book Amplify Your Influence to amplify your influence in your life. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.